I am Diane Falvey. I'm the editor-in-chief of Furniture, Lighting, and Decor. And we are here at our final Home Design Business Think Tank webinar for this month. All month we've been talking about brand messaging and communication. And today we are talking with interior designers who have been gracious enough to share their communication experiences, detailing the strategies they've used to stay connected, and tips that can be incorporated into your business now and in the future. Our panelists today include Goff Christian, Goff Designs, Lori Miller, LGC Interior Design, and Jenna Wedemeyer Design. We have California with Goff, Jenna is in Chicago, and Lori is in New York. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, International Market Center. This is streaming live through Virtual High Point Market, and Kitchler. I am going to start with asking you guys to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. And I'm going to start with Goff. Tell us a little bit about your business, Goff.
I am based out of San Juan Capistrano in California, and it's terrible here because the weather is always horrible. Sarcasm, lots of it. California actually is a great hot spot. There's so much business out here, and even during COVID, it's actually been busier than normal. So it's actually been really, really fun. I do a lot more of a hands-on couture look where everything from beginning to end, we start off with maybe a lamp on a table, but we end up with basically redoing the kitchen. And a lot of my clients are just one after another, from referrals as well as, I do a whole one-stop shop. So when it comes to construction, lighting, kitchens, bathrooms, the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay.
But we also have a really good team. So I have a really good team that support me. So I couldn't do it without them because they shine me up and set me off, so it's pretty good. But I'm much more of a someone that just goes out and says, you know what, hey, it's easy, let's go ahead and do it. Let's play in my sandbox today.
Okay, that's great. Jenna, tell us a little bit about your business.
I'm here based in Chicago. I mostly focus on high-end residential design. I've been in business, I started my business in 2007. Which, if you guys remember, was a pretty tough time to start business. So I try to keep things pretty lean and mean. It's myself and a junior designer, and then I farm out all my ordering, expediting, bookkeeping, and that kind of stuff, which has been great. We're based here in Chicago, but we do projects all over. So my sort of motto is, instead of focusing on trying to get new clients, I keep my existing clients as happy as possible. And those clients keep coming back to me and I get referrals from them. So I do a lot of second, third homes. I get a lot of their children and obviously referrals. So that's been great. I started, this is actually my second career. My first career was in fashion, and I started, if you guys remember way back when, Neiman Marcus, which is so sad that it's going out of business. That's really kind of a devastating thing to hear about. But my first job was in the executive buying program at Neiman Marcus in Dallas. And so
wow.
I kind of grew up learning about and thinking about the customer as being king. So that's my whole focus on my business, and everything is always about the client is number one, the customer's number one. So that's sort of how I operate. Anyway, so that's sort of a little bit about me.
That's great. That's great. Lori, tell us a little bit about you.
So I also, second career, I used to run the psych units at Rikers Island, and I was a director of the crime victims program. So I come from a mental health and a holistic background. My degree was my master's was in science. So that kind of interplays. And then when I was buying my first house, I decided that I needed to be an artist. I come from a family of contractors. So I went into interior design, went back to school. And what I've been doing is integrating sort of that mental health piece with the design, because I think it's important to love where you live, love where you work, sustainability, come from a health perspective, a cancer survivor. So all of these real, things are really important to me. And I've managed to somehow become the therapist for your home, and which is not my tagline, and really get into the heads of my clients and give them a space that they love, that's a bit whimsical, that kind of doesn't take life too seriously, but it's elegant and elevated. So yeah, that's kind of where I am, based out of New York. We do residential and commercial. I usually have a team of 2 or 3. Right now we're at 2. And with the COVID, I thought we were going to be slow, but New York's been really interesting. People are working from home, and they need to have their houses done. So we've, like you have been pretty busy.
That's great. That's great to hear that everybody is busy. So let's jump into the questions. Obviously, without communication, none of us would have jobs, right? It's so essential to everything that we do. So what we wanted to talk about this week, and we started with Melissa Galt on Tuesday, was talk about how you communicate with your clients, what your tips and tricks are to make sure that you are the most effective at delivering your message, and also at making those connections that last, because those are so important. Jenna, as you mentioned, you've been with your clients for a long time, and you rely on them for referrals to continue to keep you in the loop. So my first question, there are stages in the design process where it's important to make sure that you communicate with your client in just the right way. So obviously you have to communicate all along, but what would you say are some of the touch points that are so important to communicating with clients and making sure everybody's on that same page? Goff, we'll start with you.
Bark less, wag more, and write it down. Communication is, especially when you're sitting there with a bunch of people or a couple of people or one person, and the husband isn't around or the wife isn't around, and I kind of try to make sure that every buying person that is going to be vested in this space is going to be there, because that way I can really see the body language. I really work a lot with people's personality traits. So if you are more dominant or expressive, and usually the one spouse is different from the other spouse, I try to look at more of their body language and how they communicate. And from there, I can actually go ahead and mirror their direction. When it comes to communicating, though, I make sure that I write it down, remember somehow, or write it down within the next 20 minutes after I've left on all the key points, so that later on I can plant the seed back with them to remind them what we were talking about and what we're going on to do next, because they always want to see what's happening next. And I write things down because, my name is Goff. It's not God, even though it's similar. It's not. But it's one of those things is that, writing things down. And also I do a lot of sketching. I do a lot of drawing. My background is a lot more in art and fine arts. So and 100 years ago, I did a lot of murals and trompe-l'oeil in homes. So by doing that, I can actually go ahead and do a pretty good sketch, because a picture is 1,000 words. So, and when I communicate that, and I also let them know, and that's where I basically have them sign off right there and say, this is what it's going to be, but it's only an idea of what it's going to be like. And I get them to really kind of figure out, because when you have somebody write something down and check mark it, they actually have that in their brain, even though we're not going to hold it to them, they kind of remember it. So.
Okay, that's great. Jenna, how about you? What would you say are the most important points where you're talking, like, we have to communicate all the way through, but what are the most important points for communication with your clients? Where is it most critical that you communicate in a clear way?
Well, I mean, I just start like at the very beginning where it's more, the most important part before we get anywhere is making sure that the people are a good fit for me.
Okay.
That's like the most critical thing, because there's this one thing where I feel like, one of the most important things I think that we all need to remember as designers is there is a designer for everybody. Don't feel like as designers, you have to say yes to everybody. And I feel like sometimes, especially now that everybody's starting to freak out about COVID and are we all going to have enough work and stuff, just remember everybody is awesome. Everybody should not be, lowering their rates. Everybody's great. We're all going to be great. It's all going to be fine. Just make sure, I like to just make sure that client is a good fit for me and I'm a good fit for them. So I try to get in front of them and spend a lot of time talking to them and making sure that there is a good feel and a good fit.
You're so right on that. You're so right.
And I think that the longer I've been in the business, you have to trust your instinct and you've got to listen to your gut. And you know when there's a red flag. And those times that you haven't listened to the red flag or you haven't listened to your gut, you always regret it. So that's like the most important thing to me.
Can you share a little bit about what you would consider, like what a red flag looks like, what you would consider a red flag when you're first meeting that client, so that you know that that's going to be a fit for the both of you?
Like somebody who isn't open-minded, already has preconceived notions about what they want to do with their house. They already have their own plan, maybe. I like for my clients to, I like to collaborate. I mean, that's really important. I want somebody who wants a partner. I want a partner in my client, but I also don't want somebody that already knows what they want to do. So why the hell do they want me there?
Right.
So I want a collaborator, so I want somebody that's open-minded, but I also want somebody who's willing to take some risks, who's willing to step outside the box a little bit. I guess that's maybe one example.
Okay. Lori, how about you? What do you find are the most critical communication points? And like Jenna and Goff, is it about making sure that that's a partnership between you and that client? Is it as important for you to make sure that the client is right for you as you are for the client when you make those first initial communications?
So absolutely. So I sit and I do a thorough interview, and it's kind of, I really get to know them. I get to, I ask, have you ever worked with a designer? What's your experience working with the designer? What do you anticipate it's going to be like, just to get sort of the expectations. And especially now with everything going on, it's more important than ever to set the expectations, especially at the beginning. Places aren't open or they don't have quite the same staff. Things are getting delivered, but then half of the order isn't getting delivered. So I think right at the get-go, it's like, listen, we're not in control of everything. So we have to let the client know anything that you think can go wrong will. There's going to be a fire all over. There's going to be monsoons. There's going to be 9/11. There's going to be COVID. There's, in our day and age, we've been shown that nothing is certain. So,
And that's a benefit.
Right, exactly. So I try and make sure that they know our job is to stay on top of it. Our job is to make sure that there's a substitution if they said it was in stock and it wasn't. Our job is to make sure it comes in the right color. Our job is to make sure that the cabinetry is delivered in good condition. And if not, it's not our fault it's not in good condition, but it's up to us to make sure that it's fixed and sent back and it's correct. So I think at the very first meeting is when all of those expectations get set. Mm-hmm. And then how they react, to that it gives me a gauge of, do I really want to work with this person, or are they going to be really, that nightmare client that, you're going to be yelled at 2:00 in the morning because the paint color came out wrong, or, the drapery didn't show up yesterday.
Yeah.
So
Somebody just put on the chat, there's that one key question. It's like, have you ever worked with a designer before?
Yes.
right.
You just ask that one question. Like if you could ask them one question and only one question,
That would be it.
that's the question, right? And if they
Yep.
say yes, and you're like, and why are you not working with them? Did
Well,
they fire
exactly.
you too?
Exactly. I mean, it's one
Yeah.
thing if they retired or they went into like the pharmacy profession.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
another if it didn't work out.
Right.
Right. Golf. So this is all so great. So you have to know if they've worked with the designer before. You need to know, you want to make sure that they're a good fit for you. Golf, what are some of the questions that you ask your clients in the beginning so that you do understand them and so that you do know that there's a good connection there?
So if I've met them before, or it's a referral, there's that first part of the conversation. It's like, well, I get on the phone because my first initial conversation is by phone. I'm not going to go out to the house. I'm not going to be surprised. I don't know if I'm going to be like attacked by a mob of a harem or something like that. Chippendales, that'd be a different story, but but actually, I'll get on the phone and start saying, how did you find out about me? Where did you go? And then from there, the conversation starts to bloom. And once I get into that conversation, I start going into, where, the six stages, what is it? 6 degrees of separation of how I actually can communicate with them, or what their wants and what their needs. I was going in a direction, and now I just lost my mind. What did you ask me again?
What are some of the key things that you want to know about your clients before you decide that this is a client you'll want to work with?
Well, first of all, I try to make it fun. And so we talk, and if they actually are very too analytical and too business, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this could be a nightmare. And even on the phone, I can go ahead and figure out what a person's style is, if they're analytical or dominant or expressive, or do I need to really bring them down and get them to really start talking. Once I get them to start talking, I can steer them into the direction on where they really want to go and then how they want to work. The great part about that is that when I do have the conversation, I'll ask them, how do you want me to communicate with you? I like doing it like this. I can see people's faces, we can yak. I don't have to go out to the house all the time. If they want me to text more, I can text more. But I have to always put in, what is the time frames of the day that you're available? I do that so that they can know that I'm available up to this time. After that time, I'm not going to answer you because it's my family time. I said before, I'm busy. I've got a great team that keeps me polished, and they're awesome. And they're the 3 J's. I've got a Juliana, a Julia, and a Jules, who is Juliana.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've got a Karen, but thank God I have to remember about that all the time. But I also have 17-year-old triplets. So my day is very, very focused from beginning to end. So when it comes to work, it's work, and I work my tail off, and and my clients know I'm going to work for them, but it's only to certain times. So I put in parameters so that they can see my parameters. And when you're honest about that, even in the get-go, in the very first conversation, they realize that I'm a type of person that's going to get it done.
That's great.
And I'm not going to be wishy-washy about how it's going to be or how it's not going to be. But I'm very collaborative, and I put that across on the conversation as well. I think the other part of really getting the conversations in is that I'll ask the same question to both husband and wife. And I do give them homework because I am very, very strong about a questionnaire. And a lifestyle questionnaire is something that I tell them is one of your only homework that you're going to do, because I'm going to be taking the whole way. But I want both of you to do this. I want both of you to do it separately. And I want both of you to switch to see how things are in what you're thinking about. And believe me, 9 times out of 10, the husband was like, I never knew that. And the wife was like, you don't like this color. I'm like, yeah, I do. And then the conversation starts to spiral into a area where they both are starting to learn more about themselves. And then we get to bring me in at the very bottom level, because a lot of times it's usually one or the other. But I make sure everybody's involved.
Okay.
And they like that. It's a party. It's my sandbox.
Yeah. Jenna, same question. What are some of the critical things that you need to know about your clients, or that you find out about your clients before you agree to get into a design relationship with them?
I mean, honestly, most of mine come as referrals.
Okay.
So, if they're a referral, I usually don't have a problem with them. So it's usually not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lori, your focus is wellness. So that's an even like more specified type of design ethos, right? What do you talk to your clients about in the very beginning to know if it's a good fit?
So I don't know about so much to know if it's a good fit.
Okay.
It's more of I guess a personality and an engagement piece that I like to know, like how they communicate. I will not do that over the phone. I think that would be a great CEU, Goff, if you wanted to do that. But I like to see them in person because I like to watch them interact.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to know how they're going to answer the questions. I like to know if they're right or left-handed. I like to know how they live their life. I like to know if they have any allergies. I like to know if there's any physical limitations. Because I mean, that's important too. We had one client who had difficulty walking. So we had to make sure there were no obstructions in the way of, where we put the furniture, and to make it easy for him to use the pieces that we were putting in, and, to get into the bed and to get out of the bed, put his shoes on even was, another challenge. So it's those things. I like to know who is writing the checks and who the point person to answer the questions are.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go to the wife and she says yes and the husband freaks out.
Right.
And I've seen, with my flooring store, I've seen orders be canceled because the wife made a decision and then the husband was like, no. And then she called up and she's like, oh no, I can't do this. It's the wrong one or whatever. And it was just because the husband said no. So I want to know who the point person is. And to make sure that they're on the same page. I like to know if they're a blue or a green. I find most people aren't both. So they usually gravitate towards one or the other. Are they warm or cool? And those kinds of things.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to stay with you and ask you a question based on, you said you like to meet people in person.
I do.
Right now, that's a little challenging, especially for you in New York. So how are you assessing your clients right now? I mean, all three of you said you're busy. How are you assessing your clients right now when you can't actually meet them in person? What are your methods of communication?
Actually, the Zoom has been, it's like being in person. I mean, I feel like I'm sitting in a living room with you. I can see your facial expressions. I can see, obviously I talk with my hands. I'm not even Italian.
But you're in a great bar. Can you serve me a drink?
Sure.
It does look like she's in a bar, doesn't it?
Just playing a little poker.
You don't know what I have in this cup, by the way.
That's right.
This wasn't just water.
Meetings, yes.
I can get that communication piece by the Zoom. Facebook has the video. If they don't feel comfortable on Zoom. I mean, there's some Duo on the Google. I don't have an Apple, but there's so many other different things that you can do with the phone that it just makes it more personable. So I'll set up that communication.
Okay, great. Goff, I have a quick question for you. When is it absolutely imperative to have the communication in writing? You had talked about that a little bit before, writing everything down, but when is it important to have it in writing and make sure the customer sees it in writing as well?
Paper trail. I'm going to cover my, CYA, cover your ass. Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go. My whole style is planting the seeds. I will always say that, and I will say it to the client. I'm going to plant the seeds as we go, because that's how you're going to know what's happening, and I will keep you informed. I do weekly information gathering, and I go ahead and communicate that by email, so that there is a paper trail of what we talked about, what the status is on on all the orders. But that's a way for me to communicate to them and have it written down. When it comes down to signing your name to what's happening, or initial, like, okay, we had this conversation on these window treatments, these are the fabrics and everything we put together. I just want to make sure you're okay with this. We're not holding it, but I just want you as a reminder so you'll see it later. And I also explain to my clients that you're not signing your life away. This is not a end all. Everything is negotiable, but for you to remember that we had this conversation is more important to me. And I do go ahead and let them know my name is Goff, not God. I don't remember every little thing, and it's okay. So, but they're usually all good with that too. My first thing when I do have the conversation is that I do try to introduce them into my world. And the best way I do that is with like social media. And that's another part for them to actually see more of me. And I'll say, hey, let's go to my Instagram. Which of the pictures did you see that you said you liked on there? Or this is the direction, and look at this room over here. This is what I was actually thinking in the direction of for yourself there. But when I do send pieces across on email or text or whatever, I do like these little room boards, or sketches and things like that. And then I have them, when they reply back, that's another thing of saying, okay, this is part of my paper trail. But it's really important, because I think the reason I've gotten to this point is because I'm exceptionally expressive. People that are expressive, they just kind of like do things willy-nilly. Well, when I'm a willy-nilly person, as I was in the past, it just got me in such huge trouble. So learning from my mistakes has gotten me to the point where I'm much more detailed.
Great. Jenna, how about you? What would you say are the places where you have to absolutely make sure that your conversations are in writing, your communications with your clients are in writing?
I mentioned before that I outsource all my ordering and expediting and bookkeeping. I signed up this past year with a company called Designer Advantage, and they've really held my feet to the fire with getting my clients to pay me up front and make me get all the money and stuff and get proposals organized and together before I order anything, because I was, running 50 different directions. And because I know these people so well, and I've done 3 and 4 houses for them, I would be like, yeah, I know they want to order this. And I would just go ahead and get it ordered and just keep moving along. And then they would pay me later, which is, I know, really bad. But, I know them really well, right? So I would be like, it's fine. Anyway, so they don't really let me do that anymore.
Okay.
Aren't you happy about that?
Yeah, I know it's good. But anyway, I've had to learn this whole new way of being like a professional. And so I'm having to be, I know. So I'm having to be better about stuff like that. I feel like it's like slowed me down a little bit, but it's also made me better. Melissa would be really proud of me too. Melissa has been my business coach, so she's been
me too.
Yeah.
She was my business coach as well. And can I just jump in? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The one thing you said about that is that's the part that has gotten me in trouble, but I've realized, and it's not an expensive thing, but it's really great to go ahead and have people that do that and let them do it for you. I am not an accountant. I can't
Right,
add two
right.
and two. I am terrible with some of the other things, and like get somebody else to do it and they will do it. I mean, that's their profession. Let them do it. And I actually can make more money being in front of the client. I can be in my projects, doing my sourcing, doing my drawings, and let somebody else do it. Because before, if you think of yourself as like $50 to $100 an hour, or in some cases $150 to $200 an hour, every hour you spend is money out the door. Put it to somebody that's a professional that can do it, and then you're there. So I love having my team. I sit there and make things pretty.
Yeah.
That's
It's your
great.
zone of
They
genius.
shine me up.
You're in your zone of genius. You're doing
I'm
the
in my
things,
zone of genius. That is a
the things
Melissa.
that you love
Melissa
to do, and you're billing
Well,
for it, which is great.
That's great. Lori, I'm going to ask you the question too. How do you go about asking for the money? And Patty from our audience has asked specifically, how do you ask who will be writing those checks?
So I do it right at the get-go. So I let them know straight up, these are my fees. You have a choice. And one of the things since, I've been in business since 2000. So I've seen the industry change. We were hourly, we were project plus, we were cost, whatever. And then it went to Wayfair and I don't know, wherever people want to source their stuff from, Overstock, Jossamy, all sorts of things. So I kind of asked them, listen, here's your choices. You can do retail with a discount plus my fee, percentage of the project, or you can do hourly. You can purchase your stuff wherever you want as long as we approve. So in that choice, I then say, and who do I go to for the checks? Who am I sending the bill to? What's the email? And I say, everything gets paid up front. I don't split it, whatever they're paying, it's right up at the get-go. I don't wait when they're doing the ordering. This way we have the money, we're not fighting over it. So that's where that conversation comes in, and everything is in writing. So when I sit down with them, I have sort of a proposal that's carbon copied. We go through, we write down the list of every, what room are you doing? What pieces do you need? What are you thinking? What's your budget? This is what I think. Your budget's unrealistic. You think you're going to get $10,000 for a $3 million house, you're out of your mind.
Mhm.
We make sure it's realistic. And then I go back and then I put it in the formal proposal where it's kind of, in the event of any disaster, in the event of this, you're covered for this liability, or, the full legal, and then they sign, and then they send it back to me. I sign it. Everybody has copies. I give them a folder. It's, it's kind of, it's in jest. It says, this is Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will. They have that as the first page. They have, what we went through at the very beginning on the first meeting. They have their, what we call proposal or contract. And then the second step is, as we specify and they approve, we do the drawings, we do, all the mood boards, so to speak. And then at the next juncture would be the specifications of each item. We go through the sizes, we go through, it has a little attachment of the fabric color that they specified, that they approved. They sign off on each page, and then they get the invoice. So, or the estimate and then the invoice, because of course they can, if it's, going to be more than what they anticipated, they need to know that. And we go back to, one of the other choices.
Okay.
Make two selections.
Okay.
So at all of those junctures, and then they get a calendar. Well, this is when the order was placed. This is when you gave us money, and then this is when to expect it.
Okay. Well, and expectations are really important, right? So let's talk a little bit about setting expectations with your clients, because as we were talking about before, especially right now, you don't have a whole lot of control over when things might get there, or you might not be able to have a contractor come into the house to finish something. So let's talk, Jenna, maybe we'll start with you this time. How are you setting expectations with your clients, especially right now when expectations are a little bit hard to know?
Well, I mean, I'm a very transparent person. I just try to always be that way and communicate with them as much as possible. With this Designer Advantage, I get an expediting report from them every week, which is great. And it sort of prompts me to, hey, you got to get that's sort of a prompt for me to reach out to my clients and say, here's where your project is.
Okay.
Here's where all your items are this week. Here's kind of where we stand with your project. So it's my chance to kind of reach out to them and let them know where everything is with them too. It's just, it's life. I mean, we also have to keep a piece of humor with all this stuff. We're not curing cancer here. We are making people's homes pretty. And I mean, it's like, it's a really fine line, right? It's like, you can't like offend somebody when you say, that they're spending all this money on their house, but I don't say anything like that when I first meet them, but at the point when I talk to them about this, I obviously know them and we've gotten to be good friends, but it's like, let's have fun and, let's keep our sense of humor, right? Because things undoubtedly go wrong. They go wrong. They don't even know how often they go wrong. You guys know how often they go wrong? Every single day, like 50 things go wrong, right? It's like, it's all about flexibility.
Okay.
Like, it's just constantly. And we're putting out fires that they don't even know about. So I don't know. No, I don't know.
Those are great insights. Goff, I'm going to switch gears a little bit because you mentioned your Instagram before and how you take you take your clients to your Instagram to get an idea from them of what they might like as far as your style goes. How important is social media in your first introductions to clients or in your communication with clients throughout the process?
I'll go ahead and use it as well as my website, because my website has a link straight to the Instagram. And then but when I'm on the phone with them on my first initial conversation, before I actually meet them in person and walk through the house, I actually have them go through the Instagram. Now, I go back and forth with both, because even though my Instagram is still a work in progress, it always will be a work in progress. I find it as a tool just to go ahead and get them to see some of the things. And there's also more of my personality in there. I love to cook. I love to cook with my kids. My son and my daughter are amazing. Yesterday, my son goes ahead and made these cinnamon rolls from scratch with the flour and the yeast and everything. And I'm like, dude, where'd you come from? My daughter decided, I'm going to make dinner. And I'm like, have I died and gone to heaven? So I put things like that on the post, or I'll have also a picture of the dog on the bar, looking and smelling my martini. I want them to see my personality, and it's not just about my projects, but I do bring the projects in, and it weaves it through. That's kind of like showing them, because there's some clients I've worked with that they don't drink. I mean, I'm not a drinker, but I do have a drink every once in a blue moon. But there are people that get turned off by that. But I'd rather them know me for me, who I am. I mean, I have a husband and I have 3 kids. Some people don't. I find that very offensive. And when I was living in another part of the United States, that was very offensive to them, and I lost clients. But those are not the people for me, and I'm not the people for them.
That's right.
So knowing that from the get-go, and I am very much of an open book. One thing that has really bothered me about COVID is that I can't hug anybody. I don't shake hands. I am a hugger. I I meet you the first time and it's like, give me some sugar. My arms are around them, and then and that is me. But there's an endearment about the authenticity when you become more vulnerable. And that is what clients want to see when they're working with you. When you have that guarded, very stoic look, you start walking on eggshells, and I get rid of that in the first phone call.
That's good.
And
Well,
that's
I
Instagram.
think that's what social media should be like. I
Okay.
think our social media should show us. It should show our lifestyle. It should be authentic. It should show not just our work. It should show what we believe, our philosophy. It should show our kids. It should show not so much our love life, but the things that inspire us and make
Well,
us
it's the
tick.
ethical and moral parts of us that gravitate to other people. There's, one of my friends years ago had said, when you walk into a bar or you're going in somewhere, put your head held back, shoulders back, walk through and look at everybody in their eyes and say hello. And when you say hello, you can go back to the bar or wherever you and sit down, but all those people are going to come right back around and say hello to you because you have the smiling face. You have the endearment to want to come up to you. And social media has its pluses and minuses. The pluses part about it is that you can actually portray that part of you, and people will gravitate to it. Like, I have more clients going on and taking a look. I do more stories than anything else because I'll
Okay.
take a picture. I'm like, oh, look at that. And I'll put some pretty pictures, some rain coming down.
Yeah.
But
Not where you live. Yeah.
I think it's also important to show that you're not perfect.
Okay.
And
like I said, my name is Goff, not God.
right. Because I'm so tired of seeing all these Instagram, feeds that are everything is so staged and so perfect, because that's just not how life is. It's messy.
It is messy,
Really
but that's what makes it more fun, because we are the heroes that can go ahead and make everything much better and right.
Yeah.
I love having an issue because I can go to the client and I tell them, I mean, if something is wrong, I want to know right away. If something is wrong with my project, if something is wrong with their project, I go to them, I'll tell them what it is. However, I will always have a solution to let them know, or I'll give them an option of the two solutions that I think are better for them. And when you have that, they realize that you are there. And that's the part when I was saying before is like, on a weekly basis, I let my clients know this is what's happening, this is what we talked about, and this is all the things that are going on in the next couple of weeks. And then they understand, like right after this session, this meeting today, I'm getting in the car and I'm driving to Vegas for an installation and a delivery of a project I'm doing in Vegas. Because I'm not going to go fly in one of those COVID cans, because I'm going to sit there and look like, I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to take that 5-hour drive, but they know I'm coming. Everything is set in line, and it'll be fine. But it's communication.
Right.
Very important. Lori, I'm gonna open this to questions from our audience because it is 3:45 here. But staying on that same topic, Holly says she talks about sharing while using a guard for protecting the privacy and safety of your family. How much of your personality do you allow out? How, with your clients? And is there a way to protect do you use anything to protect your family or your privacy in any way?
So very interesting. For the most part, I am very open, so I'll show like damaged things coming in. I'll show my personal life. I'll show, I'm driving in the car, or it's like, I don't know, YouTube video or Facebook video, whatever it is. And I'm pretty out there, but the one thing I don't share is my other half, because he doesn't like to be in the spotlight.
Okay.
So that doesn't ever really, if we're in an event together, I'll show me at the event, but I won't show who I'm with. So,
Okay.
I think that kind of just gives it that little protection. And, if anyone asks, yeah, of course I have a significant other, but he just doesn't want to be in really shown. So I just don't do that.
Okay.
It's so funny. Same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
No, you will never find a picture of him in any Instagram post.
Yeah.
doesn't want to be around people or clients, except for one client who just, she can't, nobody can say no to her. So,
That's nice.
So we have another question here, I'm going to ask because we have quite a number of questions from our audience. What if you don't have luxury clients? Is it the same protocols as far as the communication and the setting the expectations?
So
consistency.
Everybody's shaking their head, so I'm going to start with you, Lori.
yeah, I mean, we have a do-it-yourself program, and everybody gets the same respect, same level of care, you know, same whatever. They purchase a bank of hours, and it works for them. And, you know, there's no difference in how we treat our clients.
Goff, what about you? Are your clients are all on the luxury level, or do you have other clients where you,
Me or God?
Goff?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have all layers of clients. A lot of my clients are luxury clients. However, I work with everyone and everyone gets the same treatment and they get the same contract. Well, the contracts vary because of different types of projects, but everybody is equal. I find that, you know, you can walk down the street and see somebody that is, you know, dressed to the nines, but doesn't have a dime in their bank account, or they have jeans and a t-shirt on with a baseball cap sideways and probably have bazillions in the bank account. So I don't treat anybody any differently. I think just everybody needs to be treated with the same respect. The old couple that retired and have, you know, they want to have their beautiful home as a retirement gift. They're on a certain amount of pension. Usually I will give them a little bit more attention because I know how hard they worked all their life to get to something that is really precious to them. Versus somebody, but everybody is equal in my book. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
Jenna, I'm going to ask you the next question. Jacqueline asks, do you ever share part or all or any of your trade discounts with your clients? Are you transparent about trade versus retail prices of the items they choose?
I'm completely transparent about my pricing.
Okay.
I charge an hourly rate, and I do a markup on net pricing, designer pricing. So that's how I structure my business. And they know that exactly from the get-go. It's in my letter of agreement.
Okay. Lori, we'll ask you this next one. Have you ever had a client be awesome all the way through a project to surprise you at the end of it? There were no red flags, second or third projects. How do you handle that? How do you handle it when a client suddenly goes sour?
So interesting, because we have a client now that we're working with, and we did their first house. We've worked with them. Now we came into the second house. Everything was great. Everything we specified, they approved, they signed, they paid, they approved it. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, we don't like that. We want something different. And it was like, are you kidding me? So all of a sudden it was like, we're halfway through construction. You're changing tiles, and it was crazy. So we're still now working with them, but it's also been very difficult because I didn't even want to pick out cabinet knobs without sending them like, this is what we're doing. This was not the way that we worked with on prior projects.
Is something else going on?
I don't know. I think in between they worked with home polish. And which is a very different experience than working with a designer. But of course they never said, well, when we first moved into the house, we used this for the living room. But of course, why would you call me back if that, so it's kind of in an interesting twist. And I really had to go back to them and say, listen, we didn't work like this the first time. We didn't work like this the second time. And now you want a little bit more control. And I'm not sure how we do this because
you have a restocking?
We hadn't actually gone ahead and ordered it. So it wasn't like we needed to do that. It was just kind of the curveball that was thrown was like, wait, you're looking at tiles, you're doing this, you're doing that, when that wasn't the agreement, that wasn't how we worked before. So I was going on an assumption that this is how, we're going to continue to work, was how we've worked in the past. where it would have been a very different conversation, and I probably wouldn't have agreed to the job.
Okay.
I
Have
do
any of
find
you
though
ever
that
had to-
I
I'm
do
sorry, go ahead,
find,
Jen.
yeah, I do find that sometimes, you know, as you, with your psychology background, thank God I have a degree in psychology too, but I find that a lot of times when people seem to be going nuts, it's usually that there's something else going on outside of their, you know, something else is going on in their life.
Yep.
And because our jobs, we are such an intimate part of their lives, we're in their home, you know, we become really intimate with them. I mean, we really do.
Very much so.
They take a lot of stuff out.
Stories.
I mean, they take a lot of stuff out on us, you know, and we have to sort of get a thick skin.
Right.
So we just need to remember that.
Have any of you ever had to fire a client?
Oh, yes. You better believe it. But I don't do it that often anymore because I'm listening to my gut, people.
Right.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
I did it in such a wonderful way that it was kind of like they were like loving me even more.
Oh my God, how did you do that? That's
I was
amazing.
just like, you know what? I'm just totally confused. I don't understand why we're going back and forth on this, and we've had the communication on it, and I do the Inspector Clouseau, kind of like, oh, now how do you feel about this? What should I do about this? And like, I was like, you know what? I don't design this way normally because I usually can really find I can read other people's minds pretty well, but I think I completely dropped the ball on this one. Do you think so? And then they start looking at me like, oh, no, it wasn't you. It wasn't you at all. And then they start opening up and telling me that, you know, they're getting a divorce. So, and I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
so there's the issue is there. I'm like, well, you know what? I do think that this is probably the best time that we put things on hold. I'm going to take your file and I'm actually going to file it away. And when you're ready, we
Yeah.
can come back to it.
Yeah.
And then they start to, because that's the part about when you are being in a person's home, you are part of their family. You are an integral part of this whole time that when they start not communicating about other things that are really important, those are the when the red flags come up. And well, I could see some of these flags starting coming up, and I usually try to pop it right up in the butt right away. But in this case, it was hard, and I told them, I said, "This is really not your time, and it's about time that maybe we can just go ahead and shelf this for a while." And it gave them an out without making him feel like I was like kicking him to the curb in
Yeah.
a way.
All right, so we have another question. How do you convince clients who've decided to put projects on hold to move forward? This attendee said she's having an issue because of the current situation with COVID. Her client has put things on hold, but I imagine that happens more than just right now. So how do you convince a client to continue to move forward, or how do you handle that?
I personally, I'm going to jump in as
Sure.
I do often.
Grateful.
Actually, right now, I think it's the best time to do a project because people are at home and they're looking at it. If they're afraid of it with COVID, in the get-go from the very beginning, when you're communicating with them saying, I'm going to take care of you. I tell them what I'm doing. When I still do deliveries to this day, and there's 3 clients of mine that have really bad immune issues. So what I do is I do the delivery. If it's some small things, if it's a bigger items, we go ahead and do it I have somebody else do it. But we bring it out to the garage. We keep it in the garage. The garage stays in the garage for 24 to 48 hours, sometimes longer, depending on what it is. And then I will say, okay, then you can bring it back into the house and you know exactly where it goes because I explained in the floor plan or the drawing or whatever it is where it should go, if it needs to be. And most of that is upholstery right now, but I basically let them know I am taking care of you. You do not need to hold off on this project right now. If you do, it's just going to get worse because the factories are backlogged, the storage places are on hold. And that's the biggest issue I've had with this Vegas project, is because Vegas was closed, North Carolina was closed, furniture wasn't going out, things were stuck in the warehouse, the trucks were only doing certain deliveries, the warehouse holding all the furniture. So it was a domino effect. And then just communicating with the client saying, I've got your back, I'm going to take care of it. You do not have to worry. Let's keep things going. We'll hold it in the warehouse. It's only a 2% of the total in storage fees, and that'll be okay. And that way, when they're ready, we can just turn the key. At least business can keep on going.
Okay. Lori, how about you? Have you had any clients decide to stop projects because of our current crisis situation, and or at another time, and how would you handle that?
So only one client wanted to stop, and it was more of a financial concern than a COVID concern. In terms of COVID, everybody was like, okay, listen, we're taking protocols, we're wearing masks, we're, not in the same room, we have the sanitizers. So even yesterday, we set up sanitizing stations in every office building that we do. But one client wanted to, stop financially. And for me, I couldn't make that decision. I was like, listen, when you're ready, we're here. We completely understand. And sure enough, they called us maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were like, listen, we can't do the project the way that we wanted, but maybe you can come in and we can kind of get some of this started, and we can do it in a lower budget. Okay. So, and I mean, that's reasonable too. Of course we can. We want to make you comfortable. So, but I haven't really had to tell anybody or push anybody. I kind of went with where they were because I want people to be comfortable. We're going to be here regardless, whether it's a month from now, 2 months from now. So that's kind of how I take it.
One last easy question. Are you guys seeing manufacturers starting to ship more again? I know that was put on hold for a little while, but as everything opens up, are you starting to see your products starting to come back in on a better timeline?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's always good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe how fast this panel went. I mean, this is amazing.
Amazing.
You guys shared so much great information with the audience. And this will be available. It will be recorded. It will be on the Furniture, Lighting, and Decor YouTube channel as of tomorrow morning. And if you've registered and you didn't make it, you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see it on replay. Goff Christian, Jenna Wedemeyer, and Lori Miller, I cannot thank you enough for all of your insights. They were fabulous, and I hope we get to do this again really soon.
Diane, I love you.
Love you too.
Love
I'd love to thank International, you threw me off. I'd also like to thank International Market Centers and Kitchlers as our sponsors. And seriously, I look forward to doing this again with all of you. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you to our audience for all your great questions too. Everybody have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
You too. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.